Welcome to another episode of Chief Innovation Officer Fireside Chats. I'm your host, Nick Jane, CEO of IdeaScale. Today, I'm excited to have Vinny, who's the Chief Innovation Officer at Prezi, one of the leading fintechs in the space of gift cards and electronic payments. I believe he's joining us from Australia, so it's bright and early. And before Prezi, Vinny has led teams at Qantas, Atlassian, and Vodafone. Welcome to the show, Vinny.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the invite.
Perfect. Let's jump right into it. First is a really basic question. What does innovation mean at Prezi or in the gift card space?
Look, I think for Prezi, and in particular, specifically my role, obviously it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it's really interesting when I talk to people outside of Prezi. Everyone has a slightly different view. To me, and for Prezi, my role is kind of advocate, sponsor, enabler. It's how do we make sure that there's a culture of innovation across the business. And that's what I mean by that is a culture of continuous improvement, essentially, and how we celebrate and reward people for that. So, for example, Prezi has very embedded values. You'll see it on the website. Things like give greatness, give magic, give a damn, and give openness. Last year, we created our fifth value, which will be on the website very soon, which is give ingenuity. So again, it's how do we celebrate these wins, innovations, and when I say celebrate, in our monthly showcases, monthly town halls, we reward people for kind of being creative, coming up with new ideas, improving their space.
And you said continuous improvement, right? My understanding is you guys have a very successful business model. You're growing gangbusters. I'm going to ask a kind of silly or devil's advocate question. Why do you need to innovate? You guys are already crushing it. Why do you need to do more?
Probably because I think, the reality is that we like I said, we're in business, and I think it's a reminder that we need to solve problems for our customers better than our competitors. You can't stop. You can't be the Kodak of the gift card world. If you fall back and start thinking everything's good, that's probably when you're gonna lose. So I think it's always having that forefront of the mind. How can we make sure that we're always achieving? Yeah, we've done amazing things. We've got things like our smart card. We were the first to do it, where rather than just gift somebody a Target gift card, we can actually say, have a Prezi smart card, and then you can choose what you want to do with that gift card. And there's the fact that we co-brand our cards. We allow businesses to actually personalize. So we allow customers to personalize and add videos and messages. So you find in the gift card industry, not a lot of people do that. That's our differentiator. That's how we stand out from the crowd.
One statement and one follow-up question. Statement is the sentiment you expressed in the world of business. You got to stay ahead of your competitors. I think it was one of the founders of either IBM or Intel said that in the world of business, only the paranoid survive. And I fully believe that, right? No matter how great you are, somebody next door to you, your competitor across the street or across the world, is trying to get ahead. So it doesn't matter if you're on top today, someone's trying to catch up. So the follow-up question is this, right? There's a lot of fintechs out there. There's a lot of people who've engaged in e-commerce, in digital transactions, and a lot of them have struggled. What innovation or what did Prezi do differently that has allowed you guys to succeed over many, many years in a space where a lot of very, very smart people have struggled or failed? Like, what did you guys do special or differently that set you on the path to success?
Look, it's probably many things. It's often not just the one thing, but I think Prezi's been around for about 10 years. So even the idea of a digital gift card was innovative, really, at the time. To kind of take that, and it wasn't. Some companies might have been doing it, but they might have just simply been sending a barcode across an email. There wasn't necessarily an experience around it. So the experience piece, I think, is really important to Prezi, and I think that's what helps us, talk to businesses and say what we can do for them. Prezi is across a few different channels, and I think that's also, it stretches the business, but it also allows you to solve a lot of different types of problems. So solving a problem for a consumer is very different than solving a problem for a business, or solving a problem for a large API type business. It's very different problem statements, but the fact that we're adaptable and flexible and solve the problems our customers need us to solve, I think that's really gives us that edge. And I'll give you an example of that. We had a customer come to us a couple of years ago, and they had a very unique problem they wanted to solve. They said, we want to be able to source gift cards and redeem them all within sub 1 second. So
all
actually
within someone's what? Sorry,
sub 1 second. So
yeah,
it was around the 500, 600 millisecond. So we went away with that. A lot of the big incumbents, that's something that they would probably struggle with. Our size was our strength, that we had this, we could adapt and we can pivot, and we went away, and within a very short amount of time we come back and went, there you go. And like I said, we were sourcing and redeeming gift cards at, I'd say, 500, 600 milliseconds
wow.
on average. And I think that's where the strength is. So it's not necessarily always doing one thing, and we don't get me wrong, we have things that stand as aside from the rest of our competitors, but I think that we're always willing to jump in and take on a challenge, and listen to what our customers want.
Got it. And by the way, I should mention, I've been a recipient of a Prezi gift card, and I had a wonderful experience as a consumer. I don't know anything about the business side or the customer side of you guys, but as a consumer, it was a wonderful experience. And that's something we try, any good software company tries to do, or technology company. So you said, there was this innovation you guys figured out 10 years ago, one of several, that allowed you to be successful when people weren't thinking about digital gifting. So now let's move ahead to 2025. Everyone's on the internet. I have my credit card that is attached to my Chrome browser. The notion of a digital credit card or a digital gift card is pretty common. What is the next trend that you guys are thinking about, or the next innovation, either from a technology or experience perspective, in a world where being digital is not, or I would argue, is not differentiating anymore?
Yeah, look, that's the challenge where, people catch up. Once you're the first, people chase, and we've got to be very aware. And I agree with your paranoid comments as well. That's
I stole that comment, to be clear, from what is the founder of Intel or IBM? I forget whom.
Yeah. So look, we're always talking about this. This is a daily occurrence, and I hope you understand. There's probably some things I can't talk about on the call, because well, hopefully the next thing is right, quite disruptive, and that's what we always hope. But I could probably talk in terms of, we're just recognizing the landscape in front of us. So within the next 10 years, the vast majority of the population are going to be in that Gen Z, Gen Alpha. The things that were maybe the experiences and the things we're solving today are not really going to fly for that next generation. So we've really got to think about who are our customers in 10 years and 15 years. And like any good change, you need, a bit of a runway to get there and really understand that landscape. So it's more around, we are putting a lot of time into obviously talking to customers, but recognizing that space around us. And I think, and even though we say, well, e-commerce has been around, and what I personally think is, we're a digital only company. We don't sell any physical goods. So that allows us to be we can think a lot differently than your standard e-commerce site. So again, that's very in our mind. How can we adapt to being 100% digital? What are the things that we could be doing, which more of the physical companies that leverage digital can't do? And they're really key for us, is like, how can we reimagine what a digital experience is? That's where the transformative piece is, I believe.
It's funny that you mentioned about being a digital native company. I recently ordered a credit card. I got a physical credit card sent to me, but at the same time that I registered for the credit card, I got the credit card number. I stuck it into my e-wallet, and I don't think I've even opened the envelope with the credit card in it. I don't know why the credit card company sent me a physical card, because I will never use it. It's probably not even activated.
Exactly,
so yes, you're absolutely right that there's things digital companies can do, and it's not just a cost thing, but from a customer experience perspective, I don't need more junk mail. So let me ask a kind of slightly different question. So you guys have innovated both in the past and in the present. You have some stuff, that you're working on, some stuff you can't talk about. That's fine. Let me ask kind of the notion of innovation, right? Some
Yeah.
companies some companies have innovation departments and chief innovation officers.
Yeah.
Others don't. And some don't because they don't feel they need it. And some say, hey, innovation is in our genetics. That's just what we do. In your mind, what made Prezi decide that they wanted to be one of the organizations that want to have an innovation department, an innovation officer? It's a multi-part question. Why did you guys make that? And why is it right or not right for certain other organizations?
Look, with Prezi, I think it was recognition that we were kind of already doing it in a lot of ways, and I can talk a minute a couple of things that we had already in play, but and I think it was just let's go full in on this and let's celebrate that we care about innovation, and to make it very very clear. So it's that kind of if you get that sponsorship from that board level, exec level, it really sets the standard within the business to say, we care about this and we're going to put some time and effort into what this means. So that was for Prezi. My personal view is every company needs something. It may not be a chief innovation officer, it may not be a department, but I think like with Prezi, we've set innovation as a value. It's something that's embedded into our DNA as a company. That's not easy to do, and maybe that's why some companies don't do it. But I very much think that's the case. But on the innovation department, my view is that can be problematic. I've seen in especially large companies that have innovation departments, it seems a very isolated, siloed space in the company which only the cool people hang out in. It kind of again can set the wrong the wrong standard for the company. So I actually think it's about ways of working. A lot of companies like Prezi, we deliver, we build products, we get them out to customers, and that's we create roadmaps and we create set milestones and we do all the usual things, but that doesn't always align to innovation. So what we recognized is that we need to set something aside which is a different way of thinking, a different way of working, which is outside of delivery. So it's a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more how do we approach it. So for example, we have, like a lot of companies, but we have a hackathon called Gift Lab, which we run twice a year, which is a really huge thing, and we get the whole business across. It's not just product and engineering. So we just did one in February. We come out with 12 amazing ideas, and on previous hackathons we've done, every single one of them has something that's gone into production. So I guess and that's a commitment as well that you have to be really sell, I think, with across the business. We also have a thing in Prezi called Fire Friday, and basically every other Friday teams can work on whatever they want. So it could be learning, it could be, I want to understand this, I want to make this better. And in our monthly showcases, that's the thing that leads our showcase. What have people done on Fire Friday? So it takes a lot of different things. So I think it's about that ways of working. It's not just about creating a department, because it'll just be a department. It won't change the culture of the business. So, and I think having a chief innovation officer, I think having something there, and it could be, maybe it doesn't have to be that particular role, but it has to be someone who is sponsoring that role. It could be a CTO, it could be a CIO, it could be a CEO, but it needs that communicated how valuable it is for the business, and then put things in, actually real things in place to help encourage that.
You mentioned a solution of, not necessarily wanting an innovation department where all the cool kids hang out, but then let me ask about the culture point that you mentioned. Why does Prezi, in your opinion, have a culture of innovation? Was it because you're a tech company, you founded, you've been successful? Is it because of the CEO? Is it because of the city you're located in? Number one, what has caused, in your opinion, Prezi to have an innovation culture, and how can other organizations implement it if they don't have it, or are they just out of luck if they don't have it already?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure I've got the full answer. it's probably a combination of a lot of things. It could be, you like you said, the company evolved and was created on the back of innovation, so that kind of sets that standard. It could be recruitment. I know, part of my role is engineering, and I'm very much and that's, if you like, the biggest team at Prezi. So when we recruit, it's finding that right mindset. We look for, we're not necessarily looking for people with the sets of skills. We're looking for the right person for the company, the right mindset, and that can include, just that innovative thinking, or at least flexible. So we may say, okay, we use this particular technology stack, but we've hired people who didn't have that. But we know that technology is going to change tomorrow. So it's about having a team who are comfortable in adapting to whatever the right technology is. And I might just add to that, and that's another part of the innovation piece at Prezi, which we don't always talk about, is how we evolve and modernize our technology. So right out now, I can say we're rebuilding our main application using things like micro front ends. We built a bespoke server-side generator. We're using a technology called Kotlin multi-platform, which is pretty new on our mobile apps. We've just been invited by Google on their early access program. So we're always pushing the boundaries of the technology as well. How can we make sure we're using the right technology to solve the problems as well?
Perfect. One last question, and it's going to be a bit of a difficult one, so I apologize for this. How do you measure innovation? Either in general or at Prezi, right? It's wonderful that we have, a chief innovation officer and innovation department. A lot of my clients, or in general, innovation practitioners, ask me, how do you measure innovation? Or is it just a feeling that we get and that our revenues are going up each year?
Yeah, look, that's the hope. I mean, we don't want to do innovation for innovation's sake. You do want to obviously have a good business case. Look, I think this is where I think the tension with innovation and how businesses usually work is, like, say, if you're delivering on a roadmap and you have milestones, you have your return on investment, you've done your research, you've done these pieces. I think with innovation, you've got to maybe be a little bit more open-minded, that by exploring something that it may not work out. It's kind of that fail fast approach of, throw 20, things at the wall and see what sticks. It's a very much a very different view of, you may try 20 things and one thing may work out. So measuring it is difficult. I'd probably personally want to measure the amount of effort put into that, that we're not just churning through the next roadmap. So, and I think it's indicators you can but you can say that about a lot of things in the world that we work in. People say, how do you measure productivity, in engineering? And it's like, well, there's a challenge there, because we don't build, we're not building cars that are the same thing than we do, 100 a day, and we can find out if we can push to 110. Everything we build is bespoke. Everything, it's about thought workers. So it's the same. Measure these things. So really, all you can do is measure the outcomes. Can you go and say, are we innovative? Are we making money? Are we leading in our space?
So let me ask a follow-up. You said you can only measure outcomes. Over what time horizon then do you try and measure outcomes? Is it, using a silly example, is it, this is a bad example, but lines of code written a day that are interesting? Or is it number of new products released a quarter? Or is it revenue growth over a 3-year span? What is the time horizon at which you try and figure out, have we been innovative? Or if, your board asks you tomorrow, Vinny, hey, were we innovative? What time period would you look back at to measure your kind of the results of your organization or for yourself at whether you were innovative?
Yeah, well, if it's talking to the board, it's probably what have I done over the last quarter. So, which is, I can put a bit of pressure on that, but I think, it's that view of, part of it is describing what innovation is. There's, again, it can come into what that challenge is. So if we're rebuilding our applications using the latest tech, to me, that's innovation. If we brought a new tool or technology into the legal department, that's innovation. So it's actually being really clear what we mean by that. It's not out there building the next, rocket to the moon type of approach, because that's where we can get caught up. It's got to be this huge disruptive thing where to me, innovation's really successful if everybody is trying to be better. So if you kind of look, and we see it in the way our teams have evolved, and we see it in the way that we do get more things out into production quicker, and that could be just the way we do deployments. There's lots of different areas where innovation is valuable and measurable, but it's also that balance of we are taking some punts as well. We are trying something out that may not work. So look, I think it's about having the confidence of your board and the execs and your CEO around you, and then talking about the actual tangible improvements we're making day in, day out.
Perfect. That was my last question. As we wrap up this episode, is there anything that we should have talked about or that you want to mention as we close out today's episode?
Probably just, I think, AI is in the news at the moment. There's a lot of that going on, and I guess again that's an area that we are spending a bit of time in, and it again there's a similar approach how we generally follow innovation. So there's the foundational pieces that we do. So we've introduced an AI guild, an AI policy. We're actually going for ISO 42001, which is the compliance for AI management. We built a strategy which looks at literacy, safety, security, data integrity, and adoption. So we set the foundations in there, and we've got about 15 different use cases in place at the moment, including our, I guess, if you think customer facing, is our AI chatbot, which is now managing around about 1,000 requests a day, and it's dealing with that without moving it on to one of our customer care agents. I'm quite excited about that. So
the only reason I didn't get into AI is everyone talks about AI, so I try not to ask the same questions as everyone else.
Yeah, but I think I get it all the time. Go to conferences, people speak to people in the industry, and I think what I'd like to call out, I think we're doing a little bit different. We started with the culture. How do we embed the idea that how do we improve the adoption, rather than saying just have random use cases that we wanted to do. So it's actually, again, looking at the return on investment, but it's also, we want to make sure we're considering the safety. We want to make sure our data has the integrity, these things that are, and again, getting the company on board to say, well, if you're in the finance department, what AI tools could help you if that was the case, rather than it's all just what's happening in product and engineering. So yeah, just something I'm quite proud of at the moment. So it's like we are pushing forward well in that area.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you again, Vinny, Chief Innovation Officer at Prezi. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning.
No, thanks, Nick. It's been great chatting to you. Take care.